Greetings one and all. Super Tuesdays here in the Holy Land, the Holy Apple, the Holy Hilltop, Tal Binyamin, second day of Shvat, 5783. Welcome back after a little bit of a break. Today's title of our class, it's a doozer. It might be 2 or 3 parts, not sure. We'll have to take it a step at a time. Title of our class, Trans-phobia or trans-gression. Okay, this tragic subject, there's not too much out there on the Jewish way of thought. So it's pretty important to get this out, try to share it with everybody, get it out best you can. The message has to be heard. Okay, my daughter is a social worker, and at times she has a night shift in the streets of Tel Aviv, trying to help youth that are on the streets and get them off the streets and help them and talk to them and encourage them and see if they need assistance. So she told me, my daughter, that more and more people are approaching her, youth are approaching her and asking her, I guess to translate it into English, it would be best said, what are your pronouns? How do we approach you? You know, you don't know if they're going to say he, she, something in the middle. So that is pretty worrisome. So I wish that we could say that if we're in the Holy Land, we're saved from this phenomena. But like all other pollution, somehow it ends up in the Holy Land. In fact, today I was speaking to a doctor friend of mine after the morning prayers, and he told me an amazing thing, that he has a friend, this doctor has a friend who's high up in the Ministry of Education in Israel, and out of 120 mandatory subjects that a teacher must bring up to his class, 80 of them deal with this trans mania. 80 out of 120 subjects. You know, forget Torah, forget Judaism, forget the Tanakh, forget the Talmud. 80 out of the 120 is on this issue. That is pretty sad. Okay, if any of you out there are thinking of investing, I have a great investment for you. No extra charge. I know that people don't come to this class for financial advice, but you're going to get it today, free of charge. No extra charge here. Okay, if you're interested in investing, my thought for today, my financial thought today would be the following. Definitely it's worthwhile to go into trans surgeries. Why is that? Because in 2022, the trans surgery business was a $350 million business. The projection of growth in the next couple of years is supposed to be 15% a year. The projection for 2027, 4 years away, is this industry will turn into, it will become a $750 million industry. Trans surgeries. Amazing. So you might want to think about that. You know, when I was a kid, even before I was a kid, There was this great song, there's no business like show business, there's no business like show. So today I would just say there's no business like trans business, there's no business like trans business. Think about that option. Okay, in the year 2007 in the United States, how many gender clinics were there in America? I'm not talking about in cities. In America, 1. Fast forward 15 years, 2022, today, there are over 300 gender clinics in the States. Amazing jump, amazing rise. There's an evil organization in the world. It's called Planned Parenthood. Maybe some of you might have heard of it. Some of you might have not. You're lucky. Anyways, we're talking about there's no business. Well, the business of Planned Parenthood is killing and mutilating babies, aborting babies. That's really their business. In fact, there's a famous woman who reached a top position at Planned Parenthood. Slipped me her name. Look it up. She spoke, I think, a couple of years ago at the Republican, the RNC, the Republican National Convention, and she was high up in the ranks of Planned Parenthood. And one day she came up to her boss and said, you know, listen, we can convince a lot of these people that are coming here that not to do an abortion. So the boss turned to her and said, well, that's how we make our money. That's how we make a living, by killing babies. And you're coming and saying we could save babies? There's no business like abortion business. The founder of the Planned Parenthood was an evil woman named Margaret Sanger. And her idea was to depopulate the minority communities. She was a racist, and not only was her idea to suppress the minority communities, but also any undesirables. It's called eugenics. Only the fit will survive. By the way, every single year there's the annual Margaret Sanger Award. Amazing. You could be a murderer and you could have an award, a yearly award in your name. This organization, Planned Parenthood, they dispense to minors testosterone. Many times on first visit. These are hormones to change a person's muscle base or facial hair, voice. So they dispense these on the first visits. In some states, the Planned Parenthood can give out these hormones, testosterones. They could give it out to minors without a need for consent from their parents. They could just come in. 13-year-old, 14-year-old just come in and ask for one. But it's not only Planned Parenthood. Kaiser, right? Many of you, I myself, I remember growing up, Kaiser Permanente, back when it just began. And they dispense also to minors these testosterones. A gigantic grocery chain, two gigantic grocery chains merged in the last couple of years. Albertson, and Kroger. And in their guidelines to their employees, when you want to become an employee there, they have various guidelines. One of them is one should not turn to customers as sir or ma'am. We want to be inclusive. Do not turn to your customers with terminologies sir or ma'am. How crazy is our world becoming? It's like a train that's heading off a cliff, picking up speed as it comes closer to that cliff. Unfortunately, we're all on that train. We know, we've heard problems, stories, locker rooms, men walking in women's locker rooms, women walking in men's locker rooms, bathrooms, gyms. It's all over there. It's all over the place. We have what we call a social contagion. And it's going wild and it's going mad. Okay. Gaslighting by the AAP. Who's the AAP? AAP is the American Academy of Pediatrics. In their 2018 guidelines on this subject, listen closely. Guidelines of the AAP. Number 1, if a boy or a girl say that they're the opposite, you shall transition them. Okay, a kid comes in, a boy or a girl, I'm really a girl, I'm really a boy, transition them. Affirm. Affirmation. That's the buzzword. Afterwards, get your hands, order to see the child's birth certificate and change the sex and the name in that birth certificate as the pediatrician. Got it? If parents refuse, the pediatrician should involve Child Protective Services to have the child removed from his parents' custody. In case you believe that you have wax in your ears, you could take out the wax and listen to those guidelines again. The official guidelines of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Official guidelines. I would call them the official political guidelines. Nothing to do with health. A famous doctor. He's been in the business for over 30 years. He's an MD, he's a PhD, he's a psychologist, an amazing man. Dr. Leonard Sachs, S-A-X, was recently invited to be an expert witness at a trial of a 14-year-old girl. Listen to this girl's story. This 14-year-old girl, when she was growing up, she was not just a regular girl, she was one of these girly girls, like super duper girls. However, when she reached the age of 14, she became distressed and depressed. And with the assistance of TikTok, she understood, quote unquote, she understood that the key to her redemption from depression was to become a male. Why? Because according to TikTok, boys do not get bummed out. Boys are not depressed. It's girls that are depressed. And in order to escape her depression and her distress, this 14-year-old girly girl decides to become a male. Comes to her family, says, hey, I'm a guy, I'm a boy. Parents say, no way, Ray, forget that. You ain't no boy, you're a girl, and don't forget it. Well, this 14-year-old girl called up the Children Protective Services herself. She didn't involve a pediatrician to do the dirty work. She called herself and complained about her parents who do not affirm her gender. Her kid, this 14-year-old girl, was taken away from her parents. You heard it right. This transmania is not any laughing issue. It's not a laughing issue for the people that are going through it, the transitioners, and for anybody else, for parents, for family, for friends. It could affect any one of us. So, this 14-year-old girl was removed from her family. Family sued and went to court. Hired a lawyer, hired Dr. Leonard Sachs, an expert with adolescents, and there he spoke. And the judge turned to Dr. Sachs and said, listen, Dr. Sachs, I hear what you're saying. But when I have on my scale, I don't know if it's the Richter scale or another scale, but when I have on my scale Dr. Leonard Sachs, and I have the AAP, who do you want me to listen to? I'm going to go with the authority. I'm going with the authorities. Folks, believe it or not, the parents lost custody of their 14-year-old daughter. She was brought to a foster family who affirmed her new gender identity. They're trying to, it's called gaslight. That's the new word, that's the modern word. Re-educate us. 1948, George Orwell. Amazing stuff. Can't make any of this up. I wish you could. Okay, we have catchphrases, buzzwords. My body, my choice. My body, my choice. Yeah, we hear that a lot in 3 different arenas. Number 1, we hear it a lot in abortion. Number 2, transgenders, my body, my choice. And also in cases of euthanasia, mercy, quote unquote, mercy killings. My body, my choice. In parentheses, I have to a little bit laugh. I wonder, all these people who are yelling, my body, my choice, the last 3 years, when it came to the COVID mandatory vaccinations, when people had green passports, when people lost their jobs, when people lost their livelihood, when people were shamed in schools, in their jobs. People were threatened. Where was my body, my choice? By the way, in another parenthesis, that is a whole class on its own. Okay, how does a Jew, how do we look at such a statement? But not even as a Jew, even as a person, there's a lot of things to say about this buzzword, these buzzwords and catchphrases that they've come up with lately. The bottom line, folks, is we are now, as we know, we're in the book of Exodus, Shmot. And there are two teams in the world. There's only two teams. You might have thought there was like the LeBron team and the Steph Curry team. No, there's two teams in the world. There's the Pharaoh team. We do not know God, as he said. And there's the Jewish team. We know God. And that is the battle royal between these two teams, between these two forces. One, my body, my choice. We do not know God. And the other, we know God. It's an amazing fact that 3,500 years ago, approximately, when Pharaoh enslaved the Jewish people, one of the first things that he did was he understood that there was a gender difference between male and female. And in order to drive people insane, he assigned women men's work, and he assigned men women's work in order to drive them mad. 3,500 years ago, he understood that there's a difference between the male gender and the female gender. Something we're having a tough time dealing with today. You know, it says in the Torah, black and white, there's certain things that should be very clear. A certain base of life is the clearest of anything else. In chapter 1, verse 27, in the image of God, so to speak, God created men and women. Doesn't say blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians, Ashkenaz, Sephardic. That man creates. But God created male and God created female. Is there anything more in your face than that? Up front, clear. We're not talking about only an exterior difference, a difference of anatomy. We're not talking about that. That exists. However, especially today, we could have a class just on this. Today, when I say today, in the last 10, 15 years, with the advancement of technology, we have seen there are so many studies out there which are showing and proving that there's a tremendous, from conception, there are tremendous differences between males and females. Not something exterior, interior, in one's brain. As far as smell is concerned, as far as hearing, as far as speaking, speech. It's all out there. Of course, you're not going to hear about that in most places. You're not going to read about that in the New York Times. My body, my choice. The Mishnah in the Ethics of Our Fathers, chapter 4, paragraph 22, Mishnah 22. Against your will, you were conceived. Against your will, you were born. Imagine that. A person's soul notified. Hey, soul, what's going on, soul? Yeah, you're about to be brought into a body that's going to be conceived this evening. The soul surrounded in a type of Garden of Eden, surrounded by holiness, but by God. Oh man, no way! Think he wants to come to this polluted world that we live in? Not at all. Therefore, against your will, the soul, you were conceived. Against your will, you were born. Against your will, you live, and against your will, you die. And against your will, you will be judged by God. My body, my choice? Not exactly. Belongs to the King of Kings, God. It is a gift that God gave to us. And every one of us has a mission to perform the years that we're here. How many years we're allotted. We all have a purpose. And there's a reason and rhyme for everything. Why we were created as males or females. And we have a certain task as a male, as a female. In our daily prayers, we say the following in a prayer called Elokai Nishama. God, my soul. My God, the soul that you have placed within me is pure. You created it. You fashioned it. You breathed it into me. You safeguard it within me, and eventually you will take it from me and restore it to me in the time to come. Listen to this. You. It's not our body. It is God's body. God created it. And our choice, we do have a choice. But our choice is to follow the laws of God. And it doesn't matter whether you're Jewish or non-Jewish. Because the non-Jews also have their commandments, the 7 commandments, which are really 70 commandments. They also have to fulfill. We have a choice, yes or no. But that is the rules of the game. To follow the words of God, the laws of God. Every one of us has a purpose and a reason. And we must fulfill our task. There's no escaping our destiny. A million trillion surgeries will not help us escape our destiny. It will mutilate us. It's brutal surgery. Brutal. It will destroy us. However, no one can run away from their destiny. I don't remember which Rocky it was, but there was a great theme song in Rocky. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcuts home. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcuts home. That was a great song. Yeah. Anyways, that's life, baby. Ain't no easy way out. Ain't no shortcuts home. Okay, let's start rolling here. There are at least, minimal, 9 prohibitions. The Torah outlook on the subject of transgender, there are 9 prohibitions in transitioning. Let's go over them. Transgression 1, right? Transgression, number 1. It is forbidden, according to Leviticus, chapter 22, verse 24, brought down in Maimonides, Laws of Illicit Relationships, chapter 15, laws 10 and 11. It is also brought down in the Code of Jewish Law, Even Ha'ezer, chapter 5, laws 1 and 2. What do those laws say? It is forbidden. It is forbidden to castrate animals and human beings, both male and female. Forbidden to castrate. So, when we have, God forbid, someone contemplating having that brutal surgery, trying to run away from your destiny, remember this. Prohibition number 1, castration. You will become infertile through this operation. Transgression 2. This is based on a verse in Deuteronomy 22:5. It's brought down in Maimonides, Laws of Idolatry, chapter 12, law number 10. It's brought down in the Code of Jewish Law, Yehudah 182, chapter 182, law number 5. A man is not allowed to adorn a woman's garment, and a woman is not allowed to adorn a man's garment. When you change genders, that is big time. It's not just putting on a dress, it's a lot more than that. That's a second transgression. Transgression number 3. A Jew or a person is not allowed to damage one's body. Which means you cannot have a surgery unless a person needs one for health reasons. That's something else. However, for this transitioning, there is no permission, there is no green light for such a damage of one's body. This is brought down in the Talmud, in Bava Kama, page 91, side B. It's brought down in the Maimonides, Laws of Injury and Damaging, chapter 5, law 1. It's brought down also in the Code of Jewish Law, Choshen Mishpat 420, chapter 420, law 31. Trans-gression, number 4. Nullifying the commandment to procreate. Everyone, including non-Jews, are commanded by God to fill the world with people, with God's creations. And therefore, one that consents to such a surgery, the trans surgery, is neglecting this commandment to procreate. Trans-gression, number 5. Listen closely. We're not talking about a person that was born into these illnesses. We're talking about artificial. We're talking about things that happened during things from the outside that caused us damage. So, one is not allowed to marry someone who has been castrated. This is in Deuteronomy 23:3, or whose reproduction organs have been punctured or damaged. This is brought down as law in Maimonides, Illicit Relationships, chapter 16, laws 1, 2, and 3. Also brought down in the Code of Jewish Law, Even HaEzer, chapter 5, laws 1 and 2. Trans-gression, number 6. Homosexuality. A man or a woman that are having relations with previous males or females, that is forbidden. Homosexual relationships, right? A man becomes a woman, but he's really a man. And then he looks like a woman. She marries a man, but he's a man. So that is homosexuality, and also the opposite. There's female, they even have, abbreviations for this stuff. FTM, female, to male. MTF, not MTV, but we might prefer the MTV on the MTF. Male to female. You gotta, all these buzzwords, you gotta keep up with the Joneses here. Amazing. So homosexuality. This is also brought down in Maimonides. Illicit relationships, chapter 21, law 8. Code of Jewish Law, Even HaEzer, chapter 20, law 2. This is also, check it out, very interesting, in the Torah commentary of the Ibn Ezra on Leviticus 18 chapter 18, verse 22. This is the Ibn Ezra quoting Rabbi Hananel in a very interesting, check it out for yourselves. Okay, trans-gression number 7. This is a desecration of God's name. God, who knows all, who is infinite. He was, as I like to say, is, was, will be. God was, He is, will be. He knows it all. He knows what's the best. He loves us. He's given us the ammunition we need to be victorious in our mission in this world. And we go around and say, no, I think I know better. This was a mistake. The fact that I was born male, that was a mistake, God. This is this desecration of God's name. Imagine that. Some ant arguing with Einstein. Trans-gression number 8. This causes tremendous rift, stress, pain, illness to parents, to family members, and to friends. The result of these transitioning surgeries, my body, my choice. Everyone else really doesn't matter. The fact that I'm running over all these people that we mentioned, family, friends, parents, that doesn't matter. My body, my choice. I am the center of the world. Last but not least, a transgression, misleading people. In Hebrew it's called lifnei iver lo titen michshol. Do not place a stumbling block in front of someone that cannot see. You go to a synagogue, you go to a restaurant, you go to whatever the life scenario is, and you think you're next to a woman, but you're next to a man, and vice versa. So this is placing a stumbling block. And we will get to cases where people were misled. People actually got married to these types, not knowing. So those are, once again, there are many more, but those are the major 9. Okay, now the last part of today's class, the Torah outlook on creation. Batting first. There's a tremendous book. We're not sure who the author is. It was written probably 900 years ago or so. And it's called the Book of Chinuch, of Education. It goes over the 613 commandments. It gives some details, when they're to be performed, who's to perform them, and a few ideas, ideological ideas of why God commanded us. Not that these are the reason or some of the reasons. It could be some of the reasons, but not necessarily, of course, not all the reasons. We don't have those kinds of resources to know all the reasons why God gave us commandments. We just know that there's tons of reasons why God gave us the commandments. So, hundreds of years later, came a rabbi named Rabbi Joseph Babad. Rabbi Joseph Babad lived in he was born in 1801 in the Ukraine. And his name is very interesting. Not a familiar name, Babad. It means he's from a family of judges, the head of judicial Jewish courts. So that's an acronym, Babad. By the way, when I was in Chicago in 9th grade, and at the HTC, the Hebrew Theological College of Chicago, the president of the HTC was Rabbi Joseph Babad, who happens to be a relative of this famous Rabbi Joseph Babad, 150 years before him, who wrote a commentary on the Book of Commandments, the Sefer Chinuch. And on the commandment 291, right? There's 613 commandments. So commandment 291, the Rabbi Joseph Babad, in his book Minchat Chinuch, he explains, God created the world in perfect completion. Complete. God did not subtract or add anything which was extra or unnecessary. God wanted all creations to continue reproducing in order that they should not become extinct. That is the Torah outlook at our world. There's a rhyme, there's a reason, there's a purpose for everything that we see. This is a perfect world that God created. God, don't make any mistakes. Next. moving right along from the Ukraine to Spain. Hey, it rhymes. In the year 1089, the famous Torah commentator, the Ibn Ezra, in two places in his commentary. By the way, for any of the single people listening to this class, I've added this list when a parent is trying to see whether a boy should be considering marrying their daughter. There's various tests that we've learned over the years to give possible grooms to see if they're really made for each other. So one of them is ask the possible potential groom, ask him to read what is the name of the commentator in the Torah. Most people say the Even Ezer. Even Ezer is a commentary, is a book of Jewish law. But the commentary on the Torah, his name is Ibn Ezra. So I've added this to my list of how to check out a potential groom for your daughters. No extra charge for this advice. See if they know how to pronounce that name. Okay, so in two places, Leviticus 19:19, Deuteronomy 22:5. Do not mix breed, hybrid your animals as in order not to change God's creation plan. No hybriding animals. The Ibn Ezra also says the same type of logic regarding males wearing female clothing symbols and vice versa. No hybrids, no mixing. There's a reason that each sex was created. There's a purpose, there's a rhyme, there's a reason, there's a mission. And the final words of the Ibn Ezra: God despises those that change God's creation. So the Ibn Ezra, in two places, talking about men wearing women's clothes, women wearing men's clothes. There's an amazing fellow. Sorry, I don't know his name. I just saw him right before I came here. An amazing man. He looks like perhaps he's in his 70s. And he tells about his life, how when he was 4 years old, his parents for the first time left him at his grandmother's house. And the grandmother was a seamstress. And so the young boy, 4 years old, he was asking, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm making dresses for various people, and I'm going to make you one." And 4 years old, didn't really think about the subject, so she put together, the grandmother put together a dress. And every time from that time on, when he would come over alone, she would put that dress and tell him how cute he looked. So this is an amazing thing. Anyways, years later, check out the story. It's an amazing person. Anyways, he decided that he was going to transition. He became a woman for many years, and then he realized the mistake that he made, and then there's a word for this, you know, you have to keep up with all the, he had another resurgery, and today he looks like he's back to looking like who he is really, a male. But anyways, I thought that well, this is really interesting. He has a website where he guides confused youth, confused people, so trying to ensure that people don't make the same tragic mistake that he made. Amazing guy. Check him out. interesting how it started with the mixing of the clothes, as it says in Deuteronomy 22:5. Okay, moving right along. Okay, I think that for our next Torah Outlook opinion, we will call it a class. And let me see, just make sure here. Okay, we'll do one more. We'll do one more, and then we'll call it a class. The famous commentary on the Torah called Targum Yonatan ben Uziel. Yonatan ben Uziel was one of 80 students of Hillel the elder, but he was the prize student. He was the LeBron James of students, or the Tom Brady of students of Hillel the elder. He lived approximately 2,000 years ago during the era where the Romans began to rule over the land of Israel. And on this verse that we quoted, that men should not wear women's clothes and women should not wear men's garments, those that do it, the end of the verse is, this is an abomination. Not to be confused with Obama nation. Okay, that's also an abomination, but something else a little bit. Anyways, the commentary, Yonatan ben Uziel, the greatest of Hillel the elder's students, 2,000 years ago. Listen to what he says. Actually, listen to Yonatan ben Uziel says the following: a woman, on this verse, a woman who puts on the four-cornered garment with the strings, with the fringes, or a woman that puts on the tefillin, I think it's a doozer of a word, phylacteries. I hope I'm on the mark there. This is an abomination. Once again, a woman that puts on the four-cornered fringed garment of males, or the tefillin, phylacteries of a male, this is an abomination. We know there's a group of women that at the beginning of every month they go down to start all types of incitements and get people upset. It's a group called Women Off the Wall, because they're really off the wall. And they go down, and of course they don't cover their hair like Jewish law demands, but they're worried about the commandment of putting on the tefillin. That they're worrying about. And also they're worrying about putting on that four-garment fringes. But other things like modesty and covering your hair, that's not important. Very interesting. Anyways, the famous Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the Beit Yosef, on the Code of Jewish Law, Orach Chaim, chapter 38, he brings down a question based on the Talmud, Eruvin, page 96a. It says in Eruvin that Michal, the daughter of King Saul, donned the tefillin. How could that be? If Yonatan ben Uziel says that a woman who decides that she will partake in men's commandments is an abomination, how could that be? So very interesting. The Beit Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the editor of the Code of Jewish Law, some 600 years ago, he brings down in the Psikta Rabbati, chapter 22, where it says the sages of the generation opposed her action. The sages of the generation, when they heard that Michal, the daughter of King Saul, was donning the tefillin, they came up to her and they reprimanded this deed. Now there are many other answers to explain this. It's not our purpose. If you'd like to, look up on, once again, we're on chapter 38, look up the Levush commentary on the Code of Jewish Law, chapter 38, Orach Chaim. You'll see a lot of excellent, interesting answers. How is it possible that Michal put on the tefillin? Check it out. Anyways, Rabbi Chaim Zaitchik, in his book, Va'ani Tefillah, volume 1, page 279, asked an enormous question. A woman, listen to this question, a woman wants to perform a commandment of God. Okay, it's for males, but she wants to elevate herself. She wants to take on more commandments than women are obligated. Why does the Torah call it an abomination? I can understand. Tell us that it's not a good idea. Tell us that it shouldn't be done. Tell us that it's forbidden. I got it. But why does the Torah call it in black and white at the end of the verse, Deuteronomy 22:5? It is called an abomination. Why is that? So listen to this beautiful answer. Rabbi Chaim Zaitchik. Know that there are tremendous secrets in each and every commandment of the Torah. When people enter domains not theirs, they are uprooting the foundations of the world. Listen to what he's saying. This is not a private issue. My choice. My body, my choice. My body, my commandments. There are tremendous secrets in every commandment. And one that trespasses their domain into other people's property. This trespassing is uprooting the foundations of our world. It is not to be taken lightly, because everyone has a unique task in life. Everyone has. You have a basketball team. Imagine if the trainer decides one day, the trainer comes and he ties up one of the players and he's going to play. It's not his domain. He's the trainer. That's what he does. Or the coach. And all the administration that goes into professional teams. Everyone's going to do the other person's job. That is a catastrophe. And that is why it's called an abomination. Because basketball, okay, it's not the end of the world. If people start doing other people's jobs, we might have the physician coming out and playing instead of LeBron James. It's problematic, but it's not uprooting the foundations of the world. When you take commandments, male or female, that are not yours, you enter a different person's domain. You cross over. And God has made a segregation here on these commandments. You are uprooting the source and roots and foundations of the world. Okay, don't touch that dial. We'll be back with God's help next week.